Leavenworth is home to only about 2,000 people until the weekends and holidays, when tourists flood the boulevards. Almost 2 million people visit Leavenworth each year for food, fun, and a faux Bavarian experience. Its popularity has helped drive up the price and scarcity of housing and helped generate traffic headaches for the year-round residents. Mayor Sherry Farivar announced she'll step down after this term, leaving two competitors, Scott Bradshaw, a City Planning Commission member, and Carl Florea, a low-income housing advocate, in the race to lead Leavenworth for the next 4 years.
I'm a former Lutheran pastor, came to Leavenworth in 1985 as the pastor of the Lutheran church there in town. I've got the pleasure of being able to have a career that also includes my passion, which is community building, community sustaining. That's what my interest is, that's what my passion is. People, love those interactions. And so I've been able to have a whole career, both as a pastor, but also then as the founder and director of Upper Valley Mend, Meeting Each Need with Dignity, and being able to direct that organization and getting into affordable housing and being able to do that. I've also served on various boards. I've been on the school board, Cascade School District, years ago, and when my kids were in school. And then also on the Planning Commission, which Scott has now been on, and have served in that, also 2 times on the City Council. I've been on the Housing Authority for City of Wenatchee, Chelan County, and also Link Transit. So I've, kind of run the gamut.
I'm a Leavenworth native, born and raised. Grew up in Leavenworth. I was there before it became the Bavarian Village. So I've pretty much seen it all there. As growing up in Leavenworth, my parents were part of the initial groups that helped get things started. My mom was a member of the Vesta Women's Group, and my dad participated in a lot of the building remodels. And when you grow up in a little town like that, as soon as you can, you want to leave because you think there's something great out there. I very quickly found out that Leavenworth is a very great place to live, but it took me a long time to get back. During that time, I had a stint in the U.S. Navy. I went back to college and got a degree as a civil engineer. I'm now a registered professional civil engineer in Washington State. And I worked for utilities for many, many years, managing and directing engineering and operations. I worked for Chelan PUD. I also worked for Puget Sound Energy, and I also worked for the City of Palo Alto, California, managing their 5 utilities that they have down there. During that time, I spent a lot of time dealing with the public process, understanding the public process and how it works, and became very knowledgeable in how to accomplish things through the public process. I was able to retire about 7 years ago from my position at Puget Sound Energy, and I came home. Home is, it's a great place. And I felt like it's time to give something back. I'm a member of the Leavenworth Planning Commission, like Carl just said. Also, I'm a member of the Cascade Medical Center Foundation, which we work really hard to help the Cascade Hospital with their needs as far as equipment and other things.
Does the current vacation rental ordinance, do you think, need to be tightened, relaxed, left alone? Have we achieved equilibrium, or is there more to be done on that topic?
Well, right now, the Planning Commission worked really hard with the community to put together the rules that talk about bed and breakfast, and we've tightened it up such that a person that wants a nightly rent, have a nightly rental, must have someone on the property 24/7 while they're in the process of renting out their rooms. I think we've tightened it up as much as we can, but what I'd like to do is say, let's give it a chance. Let's take a couple of years and see how it's working. So far, I've heard a lot of positive about it. I haven't heard a lot of negative. I know that outside the city limits, there's been quite a controversy about noise and parking and other things, but I believe inside the city limits of Leavenworth, we've done a pretty good job of tightening it up, and I'd like to see how it's going to work.
Well, I'm just very thankful that they did decide that overnight rentals of an empty home is not going to work in Leavenworth. And I think that was a huge, huge thing. Because basically this kind of gets at the heart of, I think, what our problem is, and that is we're losing the residential community. One sale at a time, it's going towards second homes. And it had been going towards those kind of overnight rentals. And we're not in a sustainable position for the community, for the residential community. I'd say what I want to go further, and you'll see that, I testified at the county level, all those homes that are vacant and not, it's a different scenario. If somebody's living in their home and using that, that's a second income, that's a whole, because you've got a resident there. But it's all these homes that are basically vacant that are only used as kind of party homes that have been the problem. And I think those need to be regulated. They need to be planned for. People need to know where they're going to be located, because you've got residential areas in the county right next to Leavenworth where there's just lots and lots of those empty homes that aren't serving as residences, that again, there's no kind of accountability or whatever, and we're losing our neighborhoods. Leavenworth's bigger as a community than just the city limits. It includes a lot more than that. And as mayor, I think we've got to work with not just the arbitrary line that goes around Leavenworth, but with that whole community, which is our community.
What steps do you think the city can take to encourage affordable housing within city limits to make sure that people aren't priced out of the market?
Yeah, well, people are already priced out, and if I hate to use the word crisis because it gets overused, but we are at a crisis. If we're going to sustain Leavenworth as what I believe in, which is community, which is a whole community, which means all income levels, rubbing elbows with each other, all ethnic, all of those, the diversity, all ages are being able to. We're slowly becoming a retirement community for wealthy West Siders to be able to come over and live. And I have nothing against that. I've got both of my neighbors actually are part-timers, and they're wonderful people. It's not about, trying to find a bad person here. It's about what's sustainable for a community, a working community. And you brought it out, the people that work in Leavenworth can't afford to be there. And it's not just the hospitality industry anymore. There's many that have signed on to a letter addressing to the city that are both from the hospitality but also the hospital. And he mentioned, needing to keep their number one issue is housing for their workers. The school district, the same thing. Housing is, in my mind, the number one issue. And that's really, I've got a background in affordable housing. The only thing affordable that's been built in Leavenworth in the last 30 years are the two small projects we did, 2 10-unit affordable, permanently affordable home ownership. And that's all that's been done. Well, as you know, there's many more jobs that have been created than those, and the need is far greater, and we do need to address it. And I do have some plans to address it. But it's going to take multifaceted. It's going to take all of us working together, the businesses, the city, and we can get into more of what that plan is. But I do think we have got to get beyond just talking about affordable housing. You can plan, you can zone, you can do all of that, but in the end, you may just be creating more second homes unless you've got a way to capture those for our workforce. And that's the number one thing if we're going to stay a functioning, working community.
Carl's right. The biggest problem I think we have right now is affordable housing for those people that are essential to the city itself, and that is teachers, your hospital workers, your fire and police, those type of people. They need to be housed close to where they work. I believe that recently we had a housing study, and the housing study came out with several recommendations that the Planning Commission, we've been working hard on trying to implement those recommendations. We just passed a plan development code change, which I believe is going to help incentivize developers to build smaller and less expensive housing. We're trying with other code changes to look at, the city of Leavenworth itself is quite small. It's only a 1.5 square mile, and it's really the best way to increase housing inventory is through density, and we're working on those changes to increase the incentive to have more units in our housing development. So I think that's a really good start on helping get to that point where we have more housing for those people that are in the middle, what they call the missing middle, the people that are in the middle that need housing to be able to live in our great community.
And a major tourist attraction is planned for the west end of town, the Leavenworth Adventure Park. Carl, from your perspective, is the Adventure Park a project that can work for Leavenworth?
I wasn't for the project, I'll be open. Not where it is, because it is right there as the entryway, and again, you want to add to a bottleneck. I'm not against amusement. I'm not against enjoying some of those things. I think its location was not an appropriate one. I understand that with the zoning and things, I don't know how that is all going to shake out. But I do think, quite frankly, I mean, Leavenworth has been very successful at tourism. But you know, there's a word that's going around in a lot of places, Hawaii to places in the Rockies, some of those ski areas and things, and other places. There's a term that's called over-tourism. And I think, you know, Leavenworth has to just say not everything and anything goes. We can't just keep growing this exponentially, that there comes a time when you just, you've got to refocus. And that's where I think really we've got to focus now. The economic engine, we've got it revved up and it's running. I think it's time to turn that attention now to the residential and really refocus.
I think it can work. I think that it's going to provide something additional to town that we really don't have a whole lot of at this time. I remember many times coming when I had left Leavenworth and living elsewhere, coming home to visit. And one of the things that I had a tough time with was my children and family. It was tough to find something for them to do. Other than, you know, we could always go to the river or swimming pool or something like that, but other things that would excite the kids and excite the family. I think this is something that's going to help that. I also think that I read the arbitrator's report, I read the CEPA reviews, I've read the city staff report, and all of those things, it appears to me that there will be a traffic impact, but albeit a fairly small one. As far as parking goes, the developers have bent over backwards to provide even more parking than is required by the codes. I think it's going to improve the look of that end of the town. I don't believe that it's going to be a major impact on the downtown area. I think that a lot of people are going to be walking. So I think it's going to improve, maybe be an improvement to that area. Also, it's been stipulated that within a year's time, the city can review the whole thing and check it again. And if things aren't working, we can make tweaks on it to find the problems and address those problems.